Commander Zix 427 of the Kraxtonian fleet couldn't help but chuckle as he watched another barrage of human missiles sail harmlessly past his ships. The massive holographic display showed his fleet of 300 vessels, sleek and dangerous, arranged in perfect geometric patterns above Earth's atmosphere. Each ship gleamed with the characteristic purple-black alloy that had become synonymous with Kraxtonian military might across 17 star systems. "Are they even trying?" his second-in-command, Sub-Commander Vix, asked, mandibles clicking in amusement. "Their targeting systems must be running on what they call Windows 95. The bridge crew erupted in laughter, having studied enough of Earth's primitive technology to appreciate the joke. Their own neural link targeting systems were precise down to the molecular level, capable of hitting a fly's wing at 10,000 kilometers. These humans, with their crude projectile weapons and basic guidance systems, were putting on quite the show of incompetence. The invasion had started 3 Earth days ago when the Kraxtonian fleet emerged from hyperspace, expecting the usual pattern of immediate surrender they'd encountered on other worlds. Instead, they'd been greeted by something called the United Nations Security Council, requesting peaceful dialogue. Commander Zix 427 had actually been impressed by their diplomatic overtures, right until the humans launched their first warning shot that missed his command ship by several kilometers. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "they're preparing another missile launch, detecting multiple signatures from their lunar defense platforms." "Let them waste their ammunition," Zix 427 said, settling back in his command chair. "Document everything for the Imperial Archives. This will make an excellent training video on how not to conduct planetary defense." The main display lit up as dozens of missiles streaked from the moon's surface. The trajectories were almost laughably predictable, creating a beautiful but militarily useless pattern across space. Several of his junior officers had started taking bets on which missiles would miss by the largest margin. "Have the linguistic team prepare another broadcast," Zix 427 ordered, 4 of his eyes fixed on the incoming missiles while his other 2 reviewed tactical data. "Tell them we're willing to accept their surrender with only minimal planetary restructuring, considering their enthusiastic but ineffective resistance." "Commander," Vix interjected, "perhaps we should simply proceed with the invasion. This is becoming almost embarrassing to watch." Zix 427 waved a limb dismissively. No, let them exhaust their arsenals first. Besides, the Imperial Tactical Academy will want complete records of human military capability. Or should I say incapability? More laughter rippled through the bridge. As another wave of missiles went wide, Zix 427 couldn't help but wonder if the stories of humanity's victories against other alien species were greatly exaggerated. He'd read reports of humans being crafty, unpredictable, and dangerous. So far, they seemed about as dangerous as a Xylaxian singing plant. Pretty to watch, but ultimately harmless. What he didn't notice, however, was that not a single human missile had come closer than 5 kilometers to any of his ships, not one. And in space warfare, that kind of consistency was actually harder to achieve than hitting your target. Deep within Cheyenne Mountain, the mood in the Global Defense Operations Center couldn't have been more different from the jovial atmosphere aboard the Kraxtonian command ship. Holographic displays filled the cavernous chamber, tracking every missile launch and, more importantly, every deliberate miss. Admiral Chenwei stood at the central platform, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of tactical displays. Around him, military leaders from 20 nations coordinated their forces in what appeared to be the most incompetent display of warfare in human history. "The Russians have completed their failed assault on the aliens' eastern flank," General Rodriguez reported, adding air quotes with his fingers. "They're requesting permission to begin Phase 2 of Operation Blindspot." "Granted," Chen replied, his eyes never leaving the main display. "Have the Indian Space Command prepare their next series of misses. Let's make these ones even more spectacular." The chamber buzzed with controlled activity. Unlike their alien observers, no one here was laughing. Each missed shot, each failed engagement was meticulously calculated, choreographed like a deadly ballet designed to tell a very specific story. Colonel Yuki Tanaka approached the central platform, tablet in hand. "Sir, the Kraxtonians are broadcasting again. Another offer of merciful surrender considering our charming but futile resistance." She couldn't quite keep the edge of amusement out of her voice. Perfect, Chen nodded. Have Dr. Brighton's team send the response we prepared. Make sure to include plenty of what they'll interpret as human bravado and desperation. In a separate chamber, Dr. James Brighton and his team of xenopsychologists were hard at work. Their task had been unprecedented. Figure out how to manipulate an alien psychology they'd only known about for 3 days. Fortunately, the Kraxtonians had made it almost too easy, broadcasting their superiority complex with every communication. Their entire military doctrine is built on precision, Brighton explained to a group of senior officers. They literally cannot comprehend the idea of intentionally missing. It's like trying to explain the color blue to a blind person. It's so far outside their paradigm that they'll accept any other explanation first. Meanwhile, conventional warfare continued to fail spectacularly around the globe. The Brazilian Air Force executed a series of attacks that somehow managed to miss every target while putting on a dazzling display of aerobatics. The Australian Space Defence Force launched satellites that appeared to malfunction in increasingly creative ways. Each failure was carefully orchestrated, each miss precisely calculated. The humans had learned long ago that the hardest target to hit was the enemy's psychology. Colonel Tanaka returned to Admiral Chen's platform with another update. Sir, the Chinese quantum computing team has finished their analysis. The Kraxtonian fleet's formation is exactly what we predicted. They're maintaining perfect geometric patterns even while adjusting for orbital mechanics. Predictable, Chen murmured. Like all bullies, they care more about looking impressive than being effective. He tapped a few commands into his console, updating the master timeline. What's the status of the Aegis platforms? All 67 platforms report ready, sir, maintaining radio silence and minimal power signatures. The Kraxtonians still think they're automated weather satellites. Chen allowed himself a small smile. And the quantum entanglement network? Dr. Patel reports all nodes are synchronized. They're just waiting for the signal. Around the chamber, the world's military leaders continued their elaborate dance of orchestrated incompetence. Each failed attack, each missed opportunity, each embarrassing defeat was another brushstroke in a masterpiece of deception that the Kraxtonians were all too eager to believe. After all, as Sun Tzu had written over 2,000 years ago, appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. Humanity had just updated the concept for the space age. Aboard the Kraxtonian flagship, Commander Zix 427 had replaced his earlier amusement with something approaching pity. The humans had spent the last week demonstrating increasingly desperate tactics, each more ineffective than the last. His fleet had barely needed to adjust their defense screens. Another transmission from their military command, sir, reported Communications Officer Rix. They're demanding we stand down or face their ultimate weapon. The bridge crew didn't even bother hiding their snickers anymore. Show me their latest attack pattern, Zix 427 ordered, bringing up the tactical display. The human missiles had formed what appeared to be a crude sphere around his fleet, if you could call something with so many gaps and inconsistencies a sphere. Are they attempting to encircle us? With missiles that can't even fly straight? Meanwhile, in the depths of the Pacific Ocean, the nuclear submarine USS Challenger maintained radio silence. Captain Michael Henderson watched through the periscope as another wave of malfunctioning missiles launched from their tubes, their trajectories carefully calculated to appear random while forming part of a greater pattern. Status report on Operation Fishnet, he asked his XO. Lieutenant Commander Jackson consulted her tablet. Phase 3 complete, sir. The Kraxtonians have logged over 3,000 missile launches, all maintaining a minimum safe distance of 5 kilometers from their vessels. They're starting to adjust their fleet formation exactly as predicted. Perfect, Henderson muttered. They're spreading out their ships to present a harder target, following their standard tactical doctrine. Send the confirmation to GDOC. Back in Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Chen received the update with grim satisfaction. On the main display, red dots representing Kraxtonian vessels were slowly expanding their formation, like a blooming flower of arrogance. Dr. Brighton, Chen called across the command center. Your assessment. The xenopsychologist approached, practically bouncing with excitement. They're following every prediction, Admiral. Their military psychology is remarkably rigid. Each time we present them with apparent incompetence, they respond by displaying even more textbook formations. They literally can't help themselves. Like peacocks showing off their feathers, Colonel Tanaka added. Exactly, Brighton agreed. But more importantly, they're spreading their ships to maintain those perfect geometric patterns they're so proud of. The gaps between their vessels have increased by 47% since we began Operation Fishnet. Above the Earth, Sub-Commander Vix was preparing another report for the Imperial Archives. Day 10 of the human resistance, he dictated. Their forces continue to demonstrate a fascinating combination of technological capability and tactical incompetence. While they can clearly manufacture and launch impressive quantities of missiles, they appear to lack even basic understanding of spatial geometry and targeting algorithms. The report was interrupted by a junior officer. "Sir, we're detecting unusual energy readings from the human lunar bases." "More malfunctioning weapons?" Vix asked dismissively. "No, sir. It appears they're powering down their defense platforms." Commander Zix 427 lifted all 6 eyes from his tactical display. "Powering down? Verify that reading." "Confirmed, Commander. Multiple lunar installations are going dark. We're also detecting similar power reductions from their orbital platforms." "They're giving up," Zix 427 declared, mandibles spreading in a smile. "Prepare to broadcast our final warning. We'll give them one last chance to surrender before we begin the invasion proper." In Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Chen received the report of the Kraxtonians' latest communication. He turned to the assembled military leaders, representing every major power on Earth. "The hook is baited. Are we in agreement?" One by one they nodded. The Chinese general raised a hand. "What if they detect the quantum network?" "They won't," Dr. Patel interjected confidently. "Their sensors are designed to detect power signatures and conventional communications. They're looking for strength, not subtlety. It's simply not in their nature to look for what isn't obvious." "Then let's proceed," Chen ordered. "Initiate Operation Fisherman's Wife." The next 48 hours saw humanity put on the greatest show of military incompetence ever staged. The European Space Agency launched what appeared to be their entire arsenal in a spectacularly disorganized assault that somehow managed to miss every single Kraxtonian ship while creating beautiful patterns in the sky. The Chinese Space Force followed with a series of maneuvers that looked like they were choreographed by a drunk teenager playing video games. Commander Zix 427 had taken to recording personal notes for what he assumed would become a celebrated teaching case at the Imperial Academy. The humans continue to surprise us, not with their capability, but with their endless creativity in failure. Today they attempted what appeared to be a pincer movement with their missiles, only to have both arms of the attack miss our fleet by several kilometers on either side. One almost has to admire their persistence in the face of such obvious futility. In his private quarters, he reviewed the latest tactical analyses. The human attacks, if they could be called that, had forced his fleet to spread out even further, to minimize the infinitesimal chance of actually being hit by one of their wild shots. The perfect geometric formations of the Kraxtonian fleet now encompassed nearly twice their original volume of space, a testament to their superior tactical doctrine. Deep beneath the Sahara Desert, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Dr. Elena Petrov supervised the final calibrations of the quantum entanglement network. Banks of computers hummed quietly as technicians made microscopic adjustments to equipment that looked more like modern art than weapons of war. "Node 157 synchronized," a technician called out. "Network stability at 99.98%. "The Kraxtonians still think these are communication failures?" Petrov asked the military liaison officer stationed at her facility. Major Ahmed nodded, checking his tablet. "They've logged over 10,000 malfunctions in our communications network. Their latest intelligence assessment suggests our technology is experiencing massive failures under combat stress." "Arrogant bastards," Petrov muttered, making one final adjustment. "They never considered we might be using quantum entanglement because it doesn't fit their view of us as primitives. Network complete. Sending confirmation to GDOC. In orbit around Jupiter, hidden behind the electromagnetic interference of the gas giant, the automated factory ships continued their silent work. Thousands of tiny objects emerged from their fabrication bays, each no larger than a coffee cup, their surfaces covered in microscopic quantum receivers. The Kraxtonian sensor officers had noticed the activity around Jupiter days ago but dismissed it as mining operations. After all, their scans showed no weapon signatures, no power signatures, nothing but simple mechanical movements. Their superior technology could detect any threat from that distance, or so they believed. Back aboard the flagship, Sub-Commander Vix was growing increasingly bored with the whole operation. "Commander, I really must insist we begin the invasion proper. This is becoming tedious." "Patience," Zix 427 replied, though he too was tired of watching humans embarrass themselves. "Their lunar bases are going dark one by one. Their orbital platforms are powering down. Victory through demoralization is just as valid as victory through combat." "Sir," a sensor officer called out, "we're detecting massive power fluctuations from their planetary power grid." On Earth, those fluctuations were entirely intentional. Major power stations across the globe began cycling down, cities dimmed, and defense installations went dark. To the Kraxtonian observers, it looked like the final collapse of human resistance. In the Cheyenne Mountain complex, now running on carefully shielded backup power, Admiral Chen received the reports with grim satisfaction. "Status of the quantum network. All nodes responding," Dr. Patel confirmed. "The orbital platforms are maintaining minimal power signatures, while the QE links are at full capacity. The Kraxtonians aren't registering any of it on their sensors." Colonel Tanaka approached with another update. "Jupiter Division reports full deployment. The Chinese quantum computing team confirms all targeting solutions are locked and synchronized." "And the Aegis platforms?" "Still registering as weather satellites, sir. The Kraxtonians haven't given them a second look." Chen nodded slowly, studying the main display where the Kraxtonian fleet hung in space, spread out in their magnificently vulnerable formation. "Status of Operation Fisherman's Wife?" "Ready to proceed," Dr. Brighton reported. "Their psychology profile indicates they'll interpret the power fluctuations exactly as we want them to. They're practically salivating at the thought of accepting our surrender." In orbit, Commander Zix 427 was preparing for exactly that. "Begin recording," he ordered. "To the military and civilian leadership of Earth, your resistance, while admirable in its persistence, has clearly failed. We have observed the shutdown of your defense capabilities and understand this to be an indication of your readiness to surrender. The Kraxtonian Empire welcomes you as a protectorate and assures fair treatment under our benevolent rule." As the message was broadcast, he turned to his bridge crew. "Prepare for victory celebration protocols. This will be logged as one of the most efficient planetary subjugations in Imperial history. Not a single ship lost, not even a single hit taken." What he didn't realize was that not taking a single hit had been entirely the point. Every wild shot, every failed attack, every apparent malfunction had been meticulously calculated to create exactly this moment, with the Kraxtonian fleet spread out in a precise pattern that they had arrogantly chosen themselves. In Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Chen gave the order they'd been waiting for. "Initialize quantum strike systems. Prepare to show our friends from the stars why you should never judge a species by their apparent aim." Commander Zix 427's victory speech was interrupted by a curious reading on his tactical display. The space between his ships seemed to shimmer like heat waves rising from hot pavement. At first he dismissed it as a sensor malfunction. After all, the humans had demonstrated nothing but technical incompetence for the past 2 weeks. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, mandibles clicking in confusion. "I'm detecting something, but the readings don't make sense." "Explain," Zix 427 ordered, all 6 eyes focusing on the main display. "The space between our ships, it's resonating somehow, but there's nothing there to resonate." In Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Chen watched as the quantum entanglement network activated. Thousands of microscopic nodes, precisely positioned by 2 weeks of failed missile launches, hummed to life. Each node had been delivered by those wildly inaccurate missiles, positioned exactly where they needed to be, 5 kilometers away from any Kraxtonian ship. "Quantum field stabilized," Dr. Patel reported, her voice tense with concentration. "All nodes synchronized, beginning geometric lock." The true purpose of humanity's apparent incompetence was finally revealing itself. Those thousands of missiles that had missed by exactly 5 kilometers hadn't been misses at all. They had been delivering pieces of the most elaborate trap ever constructed. On the Kraxtonian flagship's bridge, realization began to dawn far too late. "Commander," the sensor officer shouted, The space between our ships, it's become geometrically locked. Some kind of quantum field. Impossible, Vic sputtered. Their technology isn't advanced enough for quantum manipulation. On the contrary, came a new voice as Admiral Chen's transmission cut through their communications. We've had quantum technology for decades. You just assumed we didn't, because it didn't fit your preconceptions. A rather serious tactical error, wouldn't you say? The Kraxtonian bridge crew watched in horror as the space between their ships began to crystallize. The perfect geometric pattern they had so arrogantly maintained had become their prison. Each ship now sat at the vertex of an enormous quantum lattice, unable to move without disrupting the very fabric of space-time. You see, Chen continued, his voice almost conversational, we noticed something interesting about your tactical doctrine. You're obsessed with perfect geometric formations. So we gave you exactly what you wanted. Every failed missile launch was precisely calculated to encourage you to spread your ships into the exact formation we needed. In the Sahara facility, Dr. Petrov watched as the quantum lattice stabilized. Pattern locked, ready for Phase 2. From behind Jupiter, thousands of tiny objects suddenly accelerated towards Earth. Not weapons, but quantum resonators, each one designed to amplify the field already established by the network of nodes. What you're experiencing, Chen explained to the increasingly panicked Kraxtonian commander, is a quantum geometrical trap. Those neat, precise formations you're so proud of, they've become the framework for a quantum prison. Each ship is now a point in a geometrically locked space. If any ship tries to move, the quantum resonance will tear it apart at the molecular level. Commander Zix 427 stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Every missed shot, every failed attack, every apparent malfunction had been deliberate. The humans hadn't been trying to hit their ships at all. They had been building a cage around them, piece by piece, node by node. All those communication failures you detected, Chen continued, quantum entanglement signals, the power fluctuations, just a show to keep you distracted. Even those primitive weather satellites you dismissed are actually Aegis platforms ready to reinforce the quantum field. In orbit, several Kraxtonian ships attempted to break formation. The results were catastrophic. As they disrupted the quantum lattice, the ships literally unraveled, their molecular bonds shredding as space itself rejected their movement. Fascinating, isn't it? Dr. Brighton's voice joined the transmission. We studied your psychology, your military doctrine, your cultural obsession with geometric precision. You were so convinced of your superiority that you never considered we might be using your own predictability against you. The quantum resonators from Jupiter arrived, taking up precise positions around Earth. The lattice strengthened, becoming virtually unbreakable. 300 Kraxtonian ships hung motionless in space, trapped in their own perfect formation. A species that believes itself superior, Chen concluded, never suspects that its greatest strengths might be turned into weaknesses. Your love of perfect geometric formations made your tactical decisions predictable. Your dismissal of our capabilities meant you never looked for our true technology, and your certainty of victory blinded you to the trap until it was too late. Commander Zix 427 sank into his command chair, all 6 eyes fixed on the tactical display that now showed his fleet's prison in all its mathematical perfection. The humans hadn't been aiming at his ships at all. They had been aiming at the space between them, building a quantum cage with a precision that would have impressed even the Imperial Academy, if any of them had bothered to look for it. Now then, Chen's voice carried a hint of satisfaction. Shall we discuss the terms of your surrender? And this time, perhaps we can skip the condescension about primitive species. The quantum lattice glittered in space, a testament to the danger of underestimating one's opponents. The humans hadn't just beaten the Kraxtonian fleet, they had turned the aliens' own pursuit of perfection into the perfect trap. The next 6 hours became a masterclass in the art of strategic humiliation. The Kraxtonian fleet, trapped in their quantum lattice prison, could only watch as human ships finally emerged from their hidden positions throughout the solar system. Not the primitive vessels the aliens had expected, but sleek craft bristling with quantum technology that their sensors had dismissed as background noise. Status report, Commander Zix 427 demanded, his voice hollow with the knowledge that he had led his fleet into the most elaborate trap in Imperial history. Quantum field strength increasing, his science officer reported. Any attempt to engage engines results in immediate molecular destabilization. We've lost contact with 15 ships that tried to break formation. They just ceased to exist, sir. From the Jupiter shipyards, a steady stream of human vessels now approached the trapped Kraxtonian fleet. Each ship carried additional quantum resonators, strengthening the geometric prison that the aliens had so helpfully arranged themselves into. In Cheyenne Mountain, Admiral Chen watched the operation with grim satisfaction. Dr. Petrov, status of the quantum lattice. Stable and strengthening, her voice came through clearly. Through quantum entanglement channels, of course. The Kraxtonians' own power systems are actually reinforcing the effect. The more they try to power up their weapons, the stronger their prison becomes. The Kraxtonian commander stared at his tactical display, finally understanding the true extent of their defeat. Every aspect of human incompetence had been meticulously planned. Their apparent technical failures had been advanced quantum communications, their wild shots had been precise delivery systems, even their seemingly random defensive patterns had been carefully calculated to manipulate the Kraxtonian fleet into the perfect geometric formation for the trap. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted his thoughts, "we're receiving surrender demands from 17 of our ships. Their crews are requesting permission to abandon formation." "Denied," Zix 427 snapped, but he knew it was futile. His fleet was finished, defeated not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by their own arrogance and humanity's understanding of it. Colonel Tanaka's voice came over the command channel, almost gentle in its delivery. "You should know that we've transmitted the full details of this operation to your Imperial Command. We made sure they understood exactly how their supposedly invincible fleet was defeated by what you called primitive geometric understanding." The quantum lattice continued to strengthen as more resonators moved into position. The Kraxtonian ships, once proud in their perfect formation, now looked like insects trapped in amber, their own positioning turned into their prison. "A final status report for your Imperial Archives, Commander." Admiral Chen's voice carried just a hint of sarcasm. "Your fleet was defeated not by the weapons you were looking for, but by the technology you refused to see. Your perfect geometric formations became your perfect prison, and your certainty of victory blinded you to the last force in the universe you should ever underestimate: human ingenuity." In a final ironic twist, the Kraxtonian ships could only maintain life support by staying in exactly the formation they had chosen for themselves. Any deviation would result in instant destruction. Their pursuit of geometric perfection had become their ultimate undoing. "Now then," Chen concluded, "shall we discuss the terms of Imperial withdrawal from Earth space? I believe you'll find our geometric understanding is more than adequate for drafting treaties." The quantum lattice sparkled in space, a glittering monument to the danger of underestimating one's opponents. The greatest invasion fleet in Kraxtonian history hung motionless, defeated not by force, but by their own predictability and human sleight of hand. 1 month later, the Imperial Academy of Military Science revised its fundamental doctrine regarding first contact scenarios. The Kraxtonian defeat at Earth became required study for all command track officers, with particular emphasis on the dangers of assumption and the true meaning of tactical superiority. Commander Zix 427, now supervising the withdrawal of all Imperial forces from Earth's solar system, had one final conversation with Admiral Chen before departure. "I must know," he asked, all 6 eyes fixed on the human's face through the quantum link display. "How many other technologies did we miss? What other capabilities did we overlook?" Chen smiled, the same gentle smile he'd worn throughout the entire campaign. "That, Commander, is exactly the right question to ask. Though I doubt you'd believe the answer any more than you believed our missiles could miss by exactly 5 kilometers purely by accident. The last Kraxtonian ship departed Earth space under the watchful eye of the Quantum Defense Network, leaving behind a changed understanding of humanity in the galactic community. The species that supposedly couldn't aim straight had orchestrated the most precise military operation in recorded history. In the Imperial Archives, a new entry was added to the definition of humanity. Approach with caution. Their apparent weaknesses are probably traps.